Before we can know why we're here, before we can know why everything is as it is, before we can know how it all will end.
Silo Season 3 Episode 1 trailer just dropped. Silo's second season closed on a colossal cliffhanger. After spending most of the season with Solo and the kids in Silo 17, Juliet finally made her way back to Silo 18. Just as she reached the door, she crossed paths with Bernard, who was utterly unraveled after discovering the truth about the safeguard. The two ended up trapped together in the airlock chamber, the very room that uses fire to decontaminate and sterilize the space after someone ventures outside. Their fate hung in the balance, and then in its closing minutes, the finale cut to a flashback of what I'll call the before times, since the world on screen looks unmistakably like ours, hinting that these scenes unfold long before the silos existed. We're introduced to two new faces, a congressman named Daniel and a journalist named Helen, sharing a drink at a bar in Washington, D.C. On the surface, they're an enigma, but the moment Daniel hands Helen the Pez dispenser that later turns up in Silo 18, the two timelines snap together. Bringing these historical figures into the fold sets up a new season poised to balance the mystery of the Silo's origins with the shifting reality of their present. Namely, what happened to the world outside, and how humanity ended up underground in the first place. As one of the show's central mysteries, it's a thrilling development, especially for anyone who felt the second season dragged. There's a real sense the show could start to feel like something entirely different. And even though I was excited for that shift, I struggled with the Season 3 premiere, though at first, I couldn't quite pinpoint why. As someone who's followed the show since it premiered, read the book series, and combed through every trailer and promo, not much came as a surprise. I knew Juliet would return to Silo 18 with no memory of what happened outside, or during her time in Silo 17. I knew the show would begin splitting timelines to lay the groundwork for answering how humanity ended up in the silos. And I knew this would mean double the table setting, and a wave of new character introductions in the Before Time storyline. All of that played a part, but honestly, a lot of it is just standard season premiere business, mixed with a few shifts I'd already anticipated. The real issue jumped out at me on a second viewing, right from the opening line. It's Juliet's nurse saying, "Here's your vitamins." My gut reaction was, sure, right. It read as such an obvious lie from the jump. And the feeling doesn't let up from there. That said, I don't want to undersell the opening sequence. It's quietly gorgeous to watch. I especially loved how the score underlines the shift in Rebecca Ferguson's portrayal of Juliet, and the shot framing her through the mirror is a nice touch, echoing the show's obsession with hidden cameras and reinforcing the idea that nothing here is quite what it seems. We're back in Silo 18. 3 months after Juliet came sprinting over the hill to warn everyone that the outside wasn't safe. At first, it looks like she's simply lost her memory, but it turns out that memory is being deliberately suppressed through medication disguised as vitamins. Surviving a cleaning and making it back alive has earned her near-universal adoration inside the silo, adoration that's apparently translated into her being elected mayor. At the close of last season, once Lucas reached the door beneath the silo that George had spent so long searching for, everything changed in an instant. One theme the first season dug into was just how easily people can be swept up by surface-level illusions. When your grasp on reality gets shattered, as it was when Juliet walked over the hill and out of sight during her cleaning, a common reaction is to swing hard the other way, convinced that everything you once believed was a lie. Bernard and Lucas both reacted this way when confronted with the truth about the safeguard. As the one running it, Bernard had always told himself the terrible things he did served the greater good, until he learned the voice guiding him had the power to wipe out everyone in Silo 18 whenever it pleased. After Bernard tried to slip outside for even a moment of freedom, Camille and Robert Sims entered the vault and spoke with the algorithm. It chose Camille to take over Bernard's role, and by the start of Season 3, she's clearly the one in charge, overseeing the administration of Juliet's memory-suppressing medication while juggling her duties as mayor. I'll circle back to exactly how she's shaping Juliet's memories, which ties directly into that idea of superficial illusion. For the most part, the drugs seem to be doing their job. There are several moments where Rebecca Ferguson nails the sense that Juliet has no recollection whatsoever of people like Knox and Shirley from Mechanical, or of Sims and Deputy Hank. My favorite instance came at the construction site, where crews are repairing the stairs. Juliet casually asks if this is where her father died, in almost the exact same tone she'd used to ask if she liked mushrooms. Knox gently corrects the record. The story she was told wasn't entirely accurate. Dr. Pete Nichols didn't head there intending to sacrifice himself for the rebellion. And when Hank tries to walk her through this deeply traumatic memory, she simply cuts him off with, "Sorry, who are you?" You'd think that bit would wear thin, but across the 3 or so times it happens in the premiere, it never quite loses its charm, largely thanks to how much time we've spent with these characters, and how well the performance sells this new, unburdened version of Juliet as a compelling contrast to the one we've followed for 2 seasons. The obvious question hanging over all of this: without her memories, is this even still Juliet? That tension is the most compelling part of the setup. Solo, unsurprisingly, has the hardest time accepting this version of Jules. And he's also the most doubtful that she'll ever return to who she was, which, for what it's worth, doesn't seem to align with what either the algorithm or Camille actually intends. I mentioned the medication seems effective, but we do catch glimpses of her true self breaking through. Hearing the phrase, "We're good in supply," triggers flashes of memory, and a dream in which she recalls being outside with Bernard, along with fragments of their conversation, leaves her convinced there's something she urgently needs to do. When she insists Bernard would know the truth if only she could talk to him, Sims escorts her to the sheriff's station and shows her the door leading outside, retelling the official story. She and Bernard spent 3 minutes together in the fire-filled airlock. Her suit was insulated, so she was protected. His wasn't, and the poison got to him. Because of that, they couldn't risk burying him at the farms. They had to clear the stairwell, and it reportedly took 6 porters 6 hours to carry his body down to the incinerator. Bernard can't corroborate any of it, Sims claims, because he personally watched him burn. Watching this all play out, it's yet another moment where the show feels dishonest with its audience. After Sims finishes his account, you're left fairly convinced Bernard must still be alive. Then comes the twist. While Sims is talking with Camille, a flashback reveals him wrapping plastic around Bernard's face to smother him. Proof that Bernard did survive the fire, only for Robert to finish the job afterward. It's framed as ironclad truth, since Sims is speaking candidly to his own wife, yet he's still lying to her about exactly how Bernard died. So there's plenty here that doesn't quite add up, which leaves you unable to fully trust anything on screen. And that appears to be intentional. The show seems to be putting us in a position similar to Jules's own disorientation. As long as the eventual payoff justifies the misdirection, this approach will work out fine. But knowing that doesn't make the premiere one of my favorite episodes of Silo. As for how Juliet herself experiences the memory loss, the performance rings true. We see the flickers surface, and she doesn't try to mask it when something comes back to her. After she brings up her plan to sneak back inside while they're together in the cafeteria, we learn Camille is going to considerable lengths to plant a false memory in her place. That she sheltered in a refuge hut until she was strong enough to return. That she found the insulated suit there, and they even show her a photo of the hut on a computer to prove it's a real place she genuinely stayed in. Camille reports back to the vault that Jules seems to have finally accepted the story as true. The algorithm, however, sounds uneasy. Juliet hasn't had a single genuine memory in 3 months, only what Camille has fed her. Yet she's suddenly certain there's something she must do. Camille argues that the memory drugs simply aren't perfect, but the algorithm cuts her off, insisting this development falls entirely outside expectations. They keep calling this presence the algorithm, a label that gets a little tiresome to repeat, though I think we're meant to wonder whether it's a person or a machine Camille is actually addressing. And moments like this nudge you toward believing it's human. Either way, it orders Camille to double the dosage, which we later see the nurse administer at Juliet's apartment. Much of the episode centers on Camille, and Sims watching Juliet drift through her mayoral duties, recognizing no one. The algorithm's apparent goal is a return to normalcy, and Camille seems content to go along with it. The lie Sims told his wife about Bernard's death is clearly something we're supposed to notice, but for now, The couple appears to be a united front. There's a brief mention of their son, when Sims tells Juliet he hopes she regains enough memory to recall pulling a gun on Camille in front of the boy. A reminder that their son remains their top priority, as far as we can tell. Given how things unfolded with the boy asking Sims to leave the vault after he'd spent so long angling for that very position, it seems inevitable that Camille's new role will put a strain on their marriage. That tension has real potential, and that's probably a good thing. The hope is that this whole exercise in uncertainty, not knowing what to believe, eventually pushes the story forward. With Juliet kept in the dark, fed the fabricated refuge hut tale alongside a carefully managed version of Bernard's death, the show creates some emotional distance from her arc for now. What she really needs to remember is Solo, the kids, and what she learned in Silo 17 about stopping the safeguard from ever being triggered. Online, fans voiced frustration with the memory loss storyline after the Season 3 trailer dropped, and Hugh Howey, author of the book series and an executive producer on the show, addressed those concerns directly in a blog post. He explained that he worked closely with showrunner Graham Yost to protect the story's core themes, pointing out that the very first novel, Wool, was born from the observation that history tends to repeat itself whenever generations fail to learn from what came before. Howey noted that even a landmark event like the U.S. Civil War can feel like distant history just 165 years later. And in the world of the silos, the Great Rebellion happened less than 150 years ago, which is how the show accounts for the total loss of knowledge about everything that preceded it. This theme of forgetting sits at the very heart of the trilogy. Howey reassured fans that the memory loss arc isn't meant to hit reset and retread old ground, but rather to explore the systems that make revolution nearly impossible within the silo. That's what Juliet is up against, he wrote. It's what we are up against. That same thread of pervasive forgetting echoes through the Before Time storyline set in Washington, D.C. We meet Congressman Daniel Keene and his sister Charlotte, a naval pilot. Their closeness is obvious from the moment they meet, finishing each other's sentences. Charlotte is visibly on edge about an upcoming mission, and pushes Daniel to use his political influence to land a seat on an Iran committee chaired by Senator Thurman, hoping he'll learn something worth passing along to Helen, the reporter, since something about this mission clearly can't be said outright. You'll recall Helen had been questioning him about Iran. It turns out Charlotte arranged their meeting, and when Daniel finally sits down with Senator Thurman, she confirms that Iran has detonated a dirty bomb in D.C. and that retaliation is coming. He makes his case for a committee seat by invoking Charlotte's deployment and her likely involvement in whatever comes next. Thurman comes across as a no-nonsense operator. Her daughter, introduced as the family's resident writer, seems to serve as her right hand. There are a few references to Daniel's military background, his engineering training, and a project he once worked on in New Orleans. And while it's technically her job to vet whoever she meets, Thurman already seems to know something about his role there. The show also makes a point of noting the two aren't political allies, coming from different parties. Yet she still helps him by sending her daughter with word that Charlotte's mission is set to launch that very night. The mission ends in catastrophe when Charlotte's squadron flies into some kind of unnatural cloud at 50,000 feet. Their instruments malfunction, a strange residue coats their displays, and the jets begin to go down. Senator Thurman later tells Daniel that while the press is reporting successful strikes on nuclear facilities, Charlotte's jet actually went down during a mission targeting a mountain installation. Charlotte survives, and after being rescued, she's sent to a specialized clinic to treat a traumatic brain injury. The senator had to call in favors just to get her a spot at what's described as the best facility in the world. When Daniel visits her there, she has no idea who he is, echoing Juliet's own confusion by asking, "Who are you?" You have to appreciate a parallel that crosses timelines so cleanly. Meanwhile, as Juliet works to figure out her next move, a few other developments unfold in Silo 18. A new council made up of level representatives and department heads has taken shape. We meet Harwood, head of mines, in a scene that feels like the show poking fun at the long-running complaint that the mines don't quite make sense given how close together the silos are. He jokes about it, explaining that cave-ins aren't really accidental, and mentions that the silo's tunnel and shaft network proves it's been standing for at least 300 years. He grumbles that they're forbidden from digging outward, all because of the pact, and we learn that Paul Billings is currently rewriting parts of it, a development that seems significant. That might explain the pulley and chair systems spotted in the construction zone, equipment that would normally be off-limits. We also learn the underground void beneath the silo, where George and Jules used to meet, has been sealed off by Walker, who doesn't appear in this episode. Carla skips the council meeting too, sending her shadow Orla to represent supply instead. Orla informs the mayor that items have gone missing from critical supply stock and may have been stolen, but before she can elaborate, Billings interrupts with news of an incident involving a new rebel faction calling themselves the Outsiders. A name that's honestly pretty funny, given these people have spent their whole lives inside the silo. It's genuinely all they've ever known. Yet the name suggests a longing to leave. The group sent an armed team to break into the suit room and steal a helmet, dropping a banner featuring the Jane Carty cleaning footage, reading, "This is the truth. The display is a lie." Seeing this, Camille orders Billings to bring in Patrick Kennedy, though it's clear he has no idea where to find him. Security reviews footage of the clash, and notices one of the Outsiders took a solid hit to the forearm from a Raider's baton, meaning she's likely walking around with a visible bandage security can look out for. Orla and Harwood share a tense exchange, rooted in some lingering resentment. She took the job his daughter once held as Supply's shadow. The show is clearly building towards something in this newly introduced part of the silo. Orla learns they're running low on vitamin D and arranges to ship 2 barrels of D+ to water filtration. Heavy loads that will require porter teams hauling sleds. Work that can only happen at night, according to one warehouse worker. In their conversation, Orla mentions being inspired by meeting the mayor, and her visit to the construction site seems to have sparked an idea about the missing supplies. The episode closes where it began, with Juliet's day. A bowl of soup arrives at her apartment, looking perfectly appetizing, but the moment she tastes it, it nearly makes her gag. Dumping it into the sink, she discovers a hidden message. Want to know the truth? Leave your bowl upside down. Go to the marketplace at 2. Burn this. She follows both instructions. And since she burns the note, it's safe to bet she'll show up at the marketplace as directed. I think that's a great place to leave things. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and thanks so much for watching.